Shalom, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, Shalom to the elect. My name is Jacobo from Plain Tables Camp. Probably been hearing about these 15-minute cities. DW is a German publication, a website. They don't like you playing their videos, so it's 25 minutes. Link will be in the description box. But what the elite want to do, they want to reorganize cities in a way where your movements limited. All right, and they would have to drastically change the nature of the economy. If it would be actually 15 minutes. Because people travel beyond 15 minutes to go to work. Nearly everyone does. So that they would have to organize some type of put together some type of pass system where most of your activities are within 15 minutes, and then you get some type of, say, hall pass to go to other cities and areas within your city or town. All right, because most things are in people's lives are beyond 15 minutes. So what I'm seeing from this is that they want to limit your movement in many ways. Maybe not every way, but in many ways they want to limit your movement so they can better track you. And it says, as recently as 2 decades ago, more people lived in the countryside than in urban areas, but that has since changed. Around 56% of the global population are now at home in cities. All right, so this can be an easier way to do lockdowns. All right. It says, according to the United Nations, about 2/3 of the roughly 10 billion people that will inhabit planet Earth by 2050 will live in built-up areas, and that's what they're counting on, right? Because it'll be easier to control the population with the implant. All right, so that's part of their plans. They may never, it may never come to full fruition. All right, but they want to be able to control the population somehow, and they're coming up with ideas to get that done. All right, and 15-minute cities Wikipedia is an urban planning concept which most daily necessities and services such as work, shopping, education, healthcare, and leisure can be easily reached by a 15-minute walk or bike ride from any point in the city. This approach aims to reduce car dependency, promote healthy and sustainable living, and improve well-being and quality of life for new dwellers. All right, and you also have the electric car thing. So that's another idea. They want to be able to control the amount of oil being used by switching to electric, which again, you generate electric through the burning of oil. It would have to be sustainable there. And these are just different ideas, and it's electric, so it's more easily controlled. All right, with electric, meaning it's easier to control the flow of electricity than the flow of oil. All right, because they can have it readily available, and then they can just cut it off with a switch. All right, with oil you gotta transport it in a truck, but if it's already everywhere, then they can control it. You're more under control. All right, and they can limit the range. All right, whether it be by technology or the nature of the capacity. All right, meaning that by nature of a battery itself, like it doesn't have that much range, and the ones that do have range are extremely expensive. All right, so this change in lifestyle may include remote working, which reduces daily commuting, and is supported by the recent widespread availability of information and communication technology. ICT, the concept has been described as a return to a local way of life. Again, they may never fully implement this, but these are their ideas. All right, and it's so many different ideas that they want to do. It's kind of confusing because they're coming at establish a new world order in different ways. It's either electric, or we're not going to be using cars at all. We're going to be on bikes. They're pushing forth a lot of different ideas. All right. I'll show you this bill. HR in 2012. I believe I found out about this bill. The apostles may have already known about the bill in 2011 or 2007. I remember I have a printout from 2012. All right, HR 163, Universal National Service Act. It failed the House, so I believe it didn't go forward. But I'm sure if you do research, there's other things that were put up later, or they went on with a different plan. The point is that they're trying to get toward their goals to establish a new world order, and that includes wars. I watched the movie 1984. They're in perpetual war, but then they were never at war, if I'm not mistaken, with Eurasia. All right, HR 163, it says House 10-5-2004 on motion to suspend the rules and pass a bill failed by the yeas and nays, 2/3 required. Right, it failed. All right, and this was introduced in 2003. Universal National Service Act, hope you can see that, declares that it is the obligation of every U.S. citizen and every other person residing in the United States. Oh, shit, you hear that? It failed. It did fail. But I'm just showing you that these are the plans they had. All right. Representative, let's get his name, Rangel Charles B. Or Charles B. Rangel. Introducing 1/7/2003. And every other person's residing in the United States. So I mean, even if you have a green card. So between the ages of 18 and 26 and back then, I was 2003, I was 18, I think. I was 18. And I was worried about, stuff like this. About, being a man, having to sign the draft documents for student loans and all that. Or military service, I forget what you call it, military service, if you were male, between the ages of 18 and 26 to perform 2-year period of national service unless exempted, either as a member of an active or reserve. So you're going to have a bunch of people going to the reserves, National Guards, things like that, or full military component of the armed forces, or in a civilian capacity that promotes national defense, requires introduction into national service by the president, sets forth provisions governing induction, deferments, postponements, exemptions, including combat training, military service. Amends the Military Selective Service Act to authorize a military registration of females. So they were actually trying to get women and everyone in the military for 2 years. So this is what they're thinking about. Don't forget this. Even though it failed, don't forget that this is what they were trying to do. And he didn't come up with his plan himself. They're trying different things to push forth the New World Order. And as soon as this shit happened, if they had passed this, a war would have broke out earlier. Well, they were already in the Infinity War in the Iraq and Afghanistan by this time. I believe it started in 2001, and then 2003 was Iraqi freedom, if I'm not mistaken. You can fact check that. And that's when I was in high school. All right, 2001 to 03. No, it was 1999. It was 1999 to 2003. All right. And these are things we were worried about back then. And I believe our elders discovered this either during the 2003 or the YouTube era, 2007, July or June 2007. Because I got a printout of this. All right, so he's working. Don't forget that he did this. Psalm 64 So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. So we know. So Esau constantly tells himself, you know, he has to tell you what he's going to do before he does it. Right? Somebody leaks it or they leak it themselves. What the agenda, what's on the elite's mind, what they're trying to do. Right? I also remember 2012. I just print out too from 2012. Putin and other publications covered this also. Putin ally fears Israel is pushing U.S. toward Iran war. Russia fears Israel will push the United States into military conflict with Iran, which would retaliate by blocking oil shipments from the Gulf of Hormuz. You can look that up. That was a whole big thing back then. All right, it may have resurfaced after 2012 also. A conflict, Prime Minister Vladimir Putin said, there is a likelihood of military escalation. All right, the Straits of Hormuz. Straits of Hormuz between Oman and Iran. Let's look that up real quick. Let's look up images so you can see it. Saudi Arabia. So in order for oil to get out of Qatar, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, or Iraq, they come through the Persian Gulf. All right. Hope you can see that. Straits of Hormuz, the world's biggest oil checkpoint, enforces as U.S.-Iran tensions flare. Also, they redid it in 2012, so that was a concern. 21 million barrels of oil a day flowed through Straits of Hormuz in 2018. All right, so this was a big fear, and it resurfaced again in 2020. All right, so what they're trying to do, they're trying to decrease the dependency on oil and go to this electric thing, but they don't. There's a big plan. All right, they're devising different ways so they can bring the New World Order in. They still want to control it though, even though they're in the midst of changing over the root source of how the country, what the country's ran on, from petroleum to electric. They still want control of it. All right, and what the Lord said, He said He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that the hands cannot perform the enterprise. So he's not going to be able to get everything done. To totally, I don't believe so anyway. To totally do all of his plans. He may get certain things done, all right, but he's not going to be able to get through all his plans, from the total abolition of internal combustion engines, to changing over from the dependency of oil. All right, to a draft every U.S. citizen or persons residing in the United States to be a part of the military. He's not going to get done all of those plans. He's only going to get done some of them. All right, it is impossible for Esau to every plan he comes up with for it to be successful, just based on that precept alone. And you can look up Straits of Hormuz and get a bigger picture. All right, that's a concern, and I remember that being a big thing back then. Yeah. So resurfaced again in 2020. This is Job 5:12. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprises. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. All right. That device, we got Makashaba, thought, device, plan, purpose, invention. All right, so we know that these various ideas that Esau appears to be implementing, he's not going to be able to implement all of them and bring them to their full fruition, bring them to their full completion. All right. Okay, so one or two more points. I put in outflock flock out, and you get the two scriptures. This is how we know that Edom and Babylon are the same. Jeremiah 49:20, Jeremiah 50:45. Jeremiah recites the same spirit that he received from on high, from Yahweh. All right, and he interchanges Edom with Babylon. All right, that's how we know that the Edomites are still around, and that they have the world's riches, and they control the world's militaries. The most powerful militaries on the planet are the Edomites. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Edom. So he received this revelation from on high. All right, and his purposes, that he hath purpose against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock to draw them out. He shall make their habitations desolate. All right. The nuclear technology came from the Germans, which we believe that the T-man is referring to the German Edomites. All right. And you have Amalek mingled among T-men, like Albert Einstein is a notable figure. He was a Amalekite amongst the Temanites, right, which they were all Edomites, right, from the nation of Edom. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. All right, the least of the flock are the Amalekites. All right, the little hats. All right. Draw what out? The Third World War and the end of it, which is the nuclear fire. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. All right. Then it says the same thing, and it interchanges Edom with Babylon. All right. And it exchanges Teman with the Chaldeans. All right. This is how we know that the Babylonians, as spoken by Jeremiah, all right, and others, is referring to the Edomites, all right, which they have the world's most powerful military technology. The Edomites hold them, and they're going to bring about the Third World's War, all right, from their various tribes, all right, and they're going to fight each other, drag the world into a Third World's War, all right. And I think I have devices. We got Noe for devices. Naima. Or Noima or Naima. And it's mental perception, thought, evil, purpose. That which he thinks in mind, thoughts, and purposes. All right. So lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. All right, casting down imaginations and every high thought. 2 Corinthians 10:5. 2 Corinthians 10:5. The first one was 2 Corinthians 2:11. 2 Corinthians 10:5. Casting down the imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of the power, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Mashiach. Yeah, we tell you that there's going to be a Third World War, and the Khazar Edomites over there in the east, all right, are going to precipitate. All right, they're going to be one of the reasons a Third World War is going to break out. All right. So it's going to have something to do with those Khazars that converted to witchcraft and then called it Judaism. All right. And there are many things that will bring about, a draft or a lockdown. Well, a few things. You got, a war breaking out where the U.S. gets directly involved, the economy crashing, some disease, or a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. All right, these are the different ideas, the purpose of the Edomites to bring in the New World Order. So let's look at parallels between the current U.S. economy and days prior to the Great Depression.
Recent economic reports have some economists drawing parallels to the days before the Great Depression. While the Biden administration touts last week's GDP numbers of a 2.9% increase as an economic win, the report also revealed an abrupt drop in real disposable income to the tune of over $1 trillion in 2022. And joining us now to discuss
I heard that before, that the economic drop of $1 trillion. I think Americans lost $1 trillion in savings. If I'm correlating those two things right, let's hear it again.
Over $1 trillion in real disposable income to the tune of. The report also revealed an abrupt drop in real disposable income to the tune of over $1 trillion.
Right, so we lost a lot of money because of the Edomite, all right, the Khazar that converted to the witchcraft form of Judaism, made us lock down and destroy businesses. So we had to use our savings and get on welfare from the state. So we lost a lot of money. So these are the different plans that Esau is going to use to put pressure on us to take the new system. All right, the new the implant. All right, and then that'll provide a solution to our economic problems. So he's pressure from above, pressure from beneath, and squeezing us to take that device.
In 2022. And joining us now to discuss is E.J. Antoni, Research Fellow for Regional Economics at the Heritage Foundation. EJ, always good to have you with us. Help us break this all down. I mean, what do last week's GDP numbers really reveal about the current state of the economy?
I think what it shows is the economy is running on fumes. We're seeing the consumer barely able to hang on in terms of spending and relying on a depletion of savings and going into credit card debt. We are seeing businesses increase their inventories, not because they're stocking up for future sales, but because they cannot liquidate current inventory at current prices. In other words, again, that cash-strapped consumer can't afford to buy what they used to. And as you pointed out, those real disposable incomes have dropped precipitously over the last year. Now, some of that is certainly due to the fact that those pandemic-era payments have ended. Those were the checks that people.
And so don't forget that the lockdowns that we went through were draconian. That wasn't something nice. That was draconian, and that destroyed the American economy and a lot of economies around the world. It destroyed it. All right, that was one of the most wicked things that we've ever gone through. Was that? All right, so the solution they're going to put forth ultimately is the implant chip. All right, but they're coming up with different ideas on how to bring in that new world order. Whether it be electric cars, a draft, everybody has to have military service, all right, not depending on as much foreign oil, but still controlling the oil, all right, linking you to a network through the increasing the speeds of the internet and mobile devices. You might call that the G5, whatever, all right. Making sure you're healthy through drugs. All right, these are the different ways that he's coming up with plans to bring in the New World Order. Making you in fear and making you think there's no hope. that's a big one right there. Our hope is in receiving power. That's the only hope we got. Because if we don't receive power, we're going to all die. All right, so we got to receive that spiritual power from the Lord. All right, or he sent his angels to protect us. That's pretty much the same thing as receiving spiritual power. The Lord sends his angels to guard us. All right, and both are going to happen. I believe both are going to happen. All right.
got from the government. But over 90% of that drop, in other words, over $900 billion of those losses is from inflation.
Yeah, and when you see the price of eggs going up in some places.
Not forget about that. Inflation. Meaning the money is worth less. So we're paying more for the money, but our income is not going up proportionately. Because if it were going up proportionately, it wouldn't really matter. I think it's safe to say, if it was going up proportionally and it always went up proportionally equal to inflation, then we wouldn't have an issue. You know, but that's not really how it works. You know, inflation rises and our paychecks don't go up. So you're making $25 an hour, you should be making $30 or $32 an hour. But no, you're still making the $25 an hour with inflation rising.
Over $10 for a dozen. It really is shocking there. As we mentioned, President Biden has a very different take on what's going on. Let's get a listen.
Remember when bread was 99 cents and $1.49? The white King Strowman bread, if you're from my area anyway. I remember that. Bread is $5 now. $5 plus. If you went out with the sprout bread or the regular bread, or wheat flour, or inflation.
And to his reaction to the latest economic report.
Jobs are the highest in American number and the highest in American history. And wages are up, and they're growing faster than inflation. Over the past 6 months, inflation has gone down every month, and God willing, will continue to do that.
EJ, your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure what information the president is looking at. Wages have not kept up with inflation. Prices have risen significantly faster than people's earnings have, so much so.
Right, so he's lying. I mean, like, what he's experiencing a different America. What the hell is he talking about? Oh, you didn't go to college. Shut the hell up. Oh, you didn't go to college. He didn't say about you not going to college. That should be some people's idea. Like, you ain't go to college, so you got to suffer. What the hell is I'm gonna say Obama? Well, he is Obama's puppet. All right, or other way around, because he's much older than Obama. That's a right wing Edomite talking point. That, you know, he's Obama's puppet. Let's go back a little bit. What is Biden talking about? He's talking about a different America.
Every month, and God willing, will continue to do that.
EJ, your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure what information the president is looking at. Wages have not kept up with inflation. Prices have risen significantly faster than people's earnings have, so much so that the average family has lost the equivalent of $6,000 a year in purchasing power. In other words, if a family today can buy $6,000 less than what they could when Biden first took office. On top of that, now that we have interest rates going up to try to help fight that inflation, that same family is facing another $1,400 in higher borrowing costs. In other words, the average family now feels $7,400 poorer than in January of 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, history shows us the U.S. economy, well, it once followed a very similar pattern to the one that we're.
Right, and it's not necessarily Biden's fault. Again, that's another right-wing talking point. They're just puppets. All right, they're just talking. They're not doing shit, really. It's the people that's behind him.
We're seeing right now, and that was back in 1932. Take us back to this historical parallel here.
Certainly. It goes back to the point you mentioned earlier on real disposable incomes. That's real meaning what your disposable income can actually buy. In other words, it's been adjusted for inflation, for price changes. And what we saw in 1932, as employment absolutely collapsed, was there was a collapse in earnings, and therefore people could not buy as much. Today, however, we are not seeing that collapse in employment. Instead, the escalation of prices, in other words, inflation, has eaten away at your paycheck. And so even though you may still be employed, you can buy less today than you could a year ago.
Yeah, and EJ, we have probably about a minute left or so. But, what can be done about this on the government level? What's the resolution here?
Oh, the resolution is actually very simple. The government simply needs to spend, borrow, and print less money. It's very, very simple. This was the formula that we saw in the 1980s, for example, with Reagan and Federal Reserve Chair Paul Volcker. They shrunk government and they allowed interest rates to seek their natural level instead of trying to manipulate those rates. And sure enough, it gave us 12% annualized growth.
All right, that was it there. And what it's going to eventually lead down to was the second Ezra. It says a man shall desire to go in 2 Ezra 15:17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. All right, because you're going to have different disasters. Either they're going to implement some type of travel restriction, maybe something to do with the weather, or some type of crisis. All right, Esau has so many different ideas he wants to implement. He's going to implement some of them, but not all of them. He's not going to bring all of them to the full fruition. For there shall be sedition, the 2 Ezra 15:16, among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings or princes, and courts of their actions shall stand in their power. And you're going to have riots, all right, against the government. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. All right, so they're going to have checkpoints. You're going to have reason to be there, identification. All right, they're going to slow your movement down because of some event. All right, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. All right. Yeah. Fires, bulldozing, vacancies, a lot of death. Houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And this is why we have our only trust is in Yahweh and His Son Yahushua. All right, because we believe that these prophecies are going to come to pass. All right, so I'll end that there. Let's never forget what Esau is in the work to doing. And this is a small piece of what we can actually see, that he wanted to every U.S. citizen to join the military from 18 to 26 years old. Never forget that. All right, it failed, but they have substitutes that are even more draconian than this. So hope you're edified. Shalom.